Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our DFS and betting preview for this week's President's Cup. It's a fun one. We've got national pride on the line between the international squad and over here in the USA, and we have some DFS lineups, some GPPs that we're gonna have to try and take down, and some outright bets and props you might want to take out there from the betting angle. So here in this video, gonna break down everything out there for this week, including on the Draftkings side, a look at the format. If you guys aren't completely familiar with how they treat these Ryder Cup and President's Cup style events, we're gonna talk some strategy, potential pairings. You can go out there and try and correlate and the different types of ways you can go out there and build lineups to go out there and try and get different in large field GPPs or try to be close to the optimal in single entry or cash. So we'll talk through all of that for you guys, an entire breakdown of all 24 players playing this week, as well as a few prop bets that I've taken on the betting side that I took for top point scorer. So I didn't go with any chalk, didn't take any guys that were sub 10 to 1. A few long shots that I took for top point scorer that are coming in with some sneaky good form. I think could fit Royal Montreal quite well, and a lot to get into, so let's not waste any time at all. First off, starting it off with a look at the DFS side and how to handle this cup format. A few notable changes this week that you're going to want to consider before you build lineups. First off, the captain spot, which if you're playing NFL DFS, especially on the showdown side, you're probably already familiar with, but the captain spot out there in this kind of format is going to get you 1.5 times the points, but also going to cost you 1.5 times the price. So a very important spot in your lineup. You want to make sure you're getting the most points per dollar value as humanly possible out there at that spot. And oftentimes it's not the most expensive players on the slate that you want there, but rather that mid-range player that goes off for a big score that gives you a little bit more flexibility with your other 5 spots. So there's a lot of strategy involved with going out there and picking the correct captain. If one of these top tier players goes 4-0, goes out there, sweeps it over the 4 slates, he could be the guy that you have to have at the end of the week. But if any of these mid-tier players win 3 or even 4 themselves, they could be the guy that you have to have at captain. So we'll talk through some of the best options at that position. In fact, one of the core plays that we're going to spend a little bit of extra time on will be at that captain spot, but we're going to touch on all 24 players here. But before we go player by player, I want to touch on a few of the other strategy notes this week that can help you be a winning DFS player. And just like you have on the NFL showdown side, there's a lot of correlation involved when you're dealing with just a single matchup like this. So, and by correlation, you could be pairing guys that are paired together out there for the first session, and then it'll maybe continue to be paired together for the rest of the week. So we know that guys like Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns are maybe a likely pairing that we go out there and see on Thursday. Xander and Cantlay, you've got a few other teams out there on the international squad that might also be together for a lot of this event. And when we get those pairings out there on Thursday, we're going to have a lot of information to work with. And if you don't know how it works, on Wednesday evening, they're going to have a press conference where they go out there and announce all the matchups. And right then and there, we're going to get a good taste for what each squad is going to put up against each other. If you have a few teams that go out there in round 1, go out there and really kill it, get a lot of fantasy score, win 4-3, something like that, you're going to see them likely paired together for the second round. And if they go out there and continue that kind of success, that's where you can get that pairing correlation going for you. Now, you might not want to do that with all 6 spots, right? You might not want to have, 3 different pairings out there together, because if you lose, or even if you win and you aren't all that impressive, they could change it up out there for the second or third session. So there's some correlation that you're probably going to want to do, but maybe not with all 6 spots in your lineup. The other thing to consider is you might want to play a little bit of a game script angle here. So just like what we do in the NFL DFS side, where if you think one team's going to win in an onslaught fashion, you maybe stack them in a 5-1 out there for showdown. Now, you can go full 6-0 out there in this Ryder Cup format, President's Cup this week. If you wanted to take 6 U.S. players together, they're not going to stop you out there in your Draftkings lineup. So if you wanted to go balls to the wall, in the NFL, you have to have at least 1 player from each team. There's no such rules on this kind of week. So personally, U.S. side is heavily favored here. I'm probably going to have at least 3-4 U.S. players in almost every single lineup. But if you went with 3-4 international players in every single lineup, that would certainly be a lot different to the field. So just like in NFL DFS, there's always pros and cons to taking that chalky game build. Oftentimes that chalky game build projects a lot better than some of your lower owned options. But if you're playing the big GPPs on a week like this, there could be incentive to getting to that lower owned international stack. So we'll talk through some of those options as we go player by player, but let's start up top now and talk about this Scotty Scheffler guy. He's $11,600. What I'll say, he's worth the squeeze out there at the flex position. He is the best player in the world. He's going to have a really good pairing out there with Sam Burns. The issue is that at captain, he's probably a little too expensive. You only have that $50,000 to work with. So if you took him at the captain spot, that's a whole 17-year nearly 18,000 right there. So that's what I was talking about before, where you might want to take your captain a little bit cheaper than some of the other spots, just so that you have the flexibility at that spot. So I would say Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns are the most likely pairing out there for those two. Now on Thursday, you might get a little bit of a curveball. So of course, right, we're going to be paying attention to those pairings on Wednesday afternoon. But I would be pretty shocked if Scotty Scheffler wasn't out there. And I think his most likely pairing would be a Sam Burns. Xander Schauffele is going to most certainly be paired with Patrick Cantlay. Both are playing solid golf. You got Xander, number 2 player with recent form heading in. And then you have Cantlay, who's also, I guess I don't have the rankings on here. Actually, you do. Number 16 in recent form, but has had a lot of those top 5, top 10 finishes over the last month or so. That pairing is going to be very strong. They're both very expensive. $9,200 for Cantlay, $10,800 for Xander Schauffele. And while it would be tough to take one at the captain and then the other one at flex, they could be the kind of pairing I'd take at the both at the flex position. So these elite guys, they're going to cost you an arm and a leg to go out there and play, but fortunately, pricing goes the whole way down to $4,000 this week. So there are going to be some international players towards the bottom that you could take a shot on, one of which will be a core play that we talk up here in a few minutes, but thankfully, we're going to have some salary to spend here. So just like Showdown, just like over there on the NFL side, if you've got some really cheap players to go ahead and offset some of that salary, you're going to get that same idea out here for the Cup format. I got Colin Morikawa, not really sure who he's going to be paired with. He's $9,800. I've got him down with Homa right now. That is a pairing that we've seen in the past, but they haven't been all that successful together. So that's why I still have a question mark next to him, as it wouldn't surprise me if we saw a little bit of a different pairing. I mean, it could be a Tony Finau. Heck, maybe they go completely off the rails and go with like a Thagala, a Wyndham Clark as a pairing. So not really sure what we're going to see from Morikawa, which doesn't make him my favorite play. I think he's going to be low owned, or at least lower owned than some of the other options up top, as he doesn't have that for sure guy that he's going to be playing with all week, which makes him harder to play, makes him harder to go out there and nail down. But if he has some success, maybe his first partner ends up being a surprise, he could parlay that into a win in each session. So I think there's upside, especially when we get those pairings out there on Wednesday. And Morikawa is going to be one that I definitely have my eye on. Hideki should be playing every session. He's playing some of the best golf that he has for quite some time. A lot of experience in this Cup format. He's played with Adam Scott before, but really, I don't think he has a predetermined pairing. So we'll have to see what they go out there and do with Hideki. And even if he has a pairing out there in round number 1, I'm not 100% sure that that is going to stick throughout the week. You've seen him change partners quite a bit over the last few President's Cups, and wouldn't surprise me if you saw that once again. I already talked about Cantlay. He's only $9,200, so we're starting to get to the range here where $13,800 is starting to be in the range where I'd take a captain. I don't think I want to spend over $15,000 on that kind of spot, but if I was going to really lean into the Patrick Cantlay Xander Schauffele build, it would definitely be Cantlay that I use, right? I wouldn't go up to the $16,000 Xander Schauffele, as they're going to be likely playing together for almost every single session, and if they have success, Cantlay is going to get the same score as Xander Schauffele. Now, their singles match at the end is where you could see some difference with their scoring, but if Cantlay wins out there on Sunday, I'm not all that worried about him at the captain spot. You've got Sun GM. He's a little bit more expensive than I honestly think he should be, right? He's playing on the team that is going to be the underdogs for this week. And what you got to know about some of these spend ups, like even Hideki, Sanjay, they're going to be royally underowned. You're going to get a lot more people playing Xander and Cantlay, a lot more people even taking Sam Burns and Scotty Scheffler. So I think if you're going to get different or play some of those international heavy lineups, you're going to have a ton of leverage to work with. So not sure who Sanjay is going to play with. He's had a few different pairings over the last few years. Could put him with a Korean just to try and get some of that national chemistry going that you've seen with some of the pairings on the international side, but that is yet to be known, what they do out there for Thursday. Already talked about Burns. I think he's a really good captain guy as well, down here at $12,600. In fact, he was almost the captain core play that I wanted to go out there and point out, and I guess we didn't spend enough time on Xander before. Yeah, he is a core play for me this week. Him and Cantlay are going to absolutely crush it. So, and while I like Cantlay a little bit more at the captain spot than Xander Schauffele, I love at $10,800 too. So I'm not betting him in terms of like any prop bet, but I did want to point that out. Tom Kim is at $8,000. I think a very affordable price tag. Has played really well in his small sample size at the President's Cup. But once again, just like these guys like Sanjay Hideki, they're not going to project nearly as well as the U.S. counterparts because their team, their pairings in general, are going to be weaker than the U.S. side. The U.S. is going to be favored in well over 60% of their matches, which makes them project pound for pound a whole lot better than the European side. So if you're playing single entries in cash this week, I would be playing at least five U.S. players, probably in every single lineup. Hell, I think you could even argue for a full 6-0 stack out there in cash and single entry. If you're following the projections, you're trying to go out there and make optimal plays, it's pretty apparent who those are going to favor this week. I still like myself some Wyndham Clark, some Sahith Theegala. We'll start with Wyndham Clark before we talk about a core play in Sahith. Wyndham Clark, at least to me, I mean, we haven't seen it yet, so we'll have to see how this bears out. He seems like a match play kind of guy, right? I mean, he's got that moxie, he's got that swagger to him. Reminds me a little bit of Ian Poulter when he goes out there and stands on business. Obviously, Poulter washed at this point, won't be playing in a Ryder Cup ever again, but Wyndham Clark might be our U.S. version of Ian Poulter. I could see him being nasty out there to some of his partners, the people he's playing against, I should say. A partner, I'm sure, will be great too over the next few days, but Wyndham Clark, I've got my eye on. So he was also one of the core plays I almost wanted to point out here. I will definitely be getting some exposure to Wyndham, but no idea who he's going to be paired with. You can see on here, he might be with Theegala, he could be with Homa for all we know, he could be with Brian Harman, hell, it could be a Sam Burns or a Scotty Scheffler for all we know that he ends up playing with. So I would say that we don't really have any idea what the pairing is going to look like, but if he gets a good pairing, and God forbid if he ends up getting like a Scotty as a partner, if he was with Scotty, he'd be my favorite play on the slate. Now, it's probably going to be Burns that's with Scotty, but who knows? We've seen some crazy stuff happen out there in round number one. Sahith Theegala is somebody I want to point out as a core play at captain. Down here in this like $10,000 range, if you take a Clark or a Theegala at the captain spot, you're going to have about $75,000 to $8,000 remaining for your last 5 spots, which means you could just hammer this top tier range. So you can take a lot of these flex guys that you were hoping for. You can jam in a Scotty, a Sam Burns out there as a stack. You can go out there and take a Xander Schauffele Cantlay stack if you wanted to as well, especially with this cheap guys down low you can use as a buyback. So I would say that Sahith, though, if you're going to take him at the captain spot, a lot of it is about what it buys you at the other spots. No, not so much that I think he's going to be a smash play this week. And the reason why I wanted to point him out, I like Wyndham Clark. I think he's going to be a baller match play. I think Sahith Theegala is going to be an even better match play player. What you see with a lot of these match play gurus, Kevin Kisner comes to mind, Ian Poulter, already mentioned before, they're all short game guys. And they're all players that play with a little bit of moxie and swagger. I think that there's a huge mental component when it comes to playing match play, but even more than that, there's an art to getting the ball in the hole. And what you see with Ian Poulter, and you've seen with some of these match play guys like Kevin Kisner, for example, is you just make those 15 to 20 foot putts. Now, who does that on tour? We know Wyndham Clark, the best birdie putter that you have on the PGA Tour, so that checks out. That's part of the reason I think he's going to have such a good match play record going forward. Sahith Theegala is that same exact sort of guy, and in fact, he doesn't just putt the ball in from 15 to 20 feet, make those massive breakers that no one else is making. He chips in quite a bit as well. He's got maybe the best short game outside of Jordan Spieth out there on the PGA Tour, and Jordan has a pretty damn good match play record himself. I mean, if you look at some of the last few events, obviously not in this field with the injury, he had been going out there and going 4-0, 5-0 when he was washed up, right? Playing alongside guys like JT. So I think that Sahith Theegala has that same sort of like mentality to golf. He's a shot creator. He's going to go for it out of the trees, or he hits the shot into the trees. Some players are just going to try and get up and down for par and go out there and have the hole. Sahith Theegala is probably going to try and manufacture a shot and try and still win the hole with the birdie. So I love that. He's got that aggressive mindset that we're looking for. And get captain, it gives you that flexibility with your salary. And I took him for top point scorer at plus 2,000. So he was the first player that I took for that. Again, I'm not going to take this chalk up top. Screw that. You always get those random stories. Those guys like a Poulter, Kisner, right? That go out there and go like 4-0, 5-0. Maybe it's Sahith this week. I just think that he's a great match play player. I considered taking Wyndham Clark for the same sort of bet. It's just the number on Sahith was just a little bit better. Adam Scott, I think he could be paired with Hideki. The thing about Adam Scott that you gotta love for a week like this is that he's likely gonna play a lot of the sessions. He's the most experienced player that you have over there on the international side. He's only $7,000, so just the opportunity alone could make him a solid play. However, he's going to be playing with some weaker pairings, right? So just like some of these other international players, if you can't tell, I think US rules this week. And it's not just the bias in me, the homer. These sportsbook odds would reflect that, right, out there in most sportsbooks. So if you're going to play that kind of narrative, that's the only issue with an Adam Scott, is that, maybe he doesn't win enough sessions to make it worth it. Max Homa, I'm not sure who he's going to play with. With his form, I could see him only playing a few sessions, so he doesn't project nearly as well as some of the other players here. Brian Harman, I guess the same kind of thing. Like, he hasn't been playing that well lately, so I'm not sure if he's going to play that much out there. In fact, I'd rather have some of the international guys like an Adam Scott than these two guys down there. So we'll have to see if they're in session number 1. Now, here's the big caveat, right? Every single year, session 1, we get a surprise pairing that nobody thought was going to be playing the first session, and a lot of times it's a random pairing that you weren't expecting to be together. I could see that random pairing potentially having a Max Homa or a Brian Harman in it, and if they end up being that sort of player, they're going to be in my player pool. So I don't want to completely roll them out, but yeah, at least early in the week, probably not the best options. You got a Siwoo Kim down here. He's the kind of guy who played well the last time we were at the President's Cup. He was actually one of the only bright spots that we saw the entire week. So maybe he gets more playing time this time around. He's been playing much better golf in 2024 than what we saw the last time around as well. So maybe in play out there as well. Tony Finau, I don't think it's the best course fit for him, but at the same time, Tony Finau at $5,800, a US player towards the bottom, is I don't think going to be massively high owned, just because he's not always been the best match play player. But at the same time, maybe he's with a guy that's a little bit more fiery. He can get that competitive instinct going. And if he wins, a few of the sessions out there, he could be the guy that you have to have down low. So I think a lot of the ownership, by the way, is going to be on some of these Canadians. That'd be a Corey Connors, Mackenzie Hughes. Taylor Pendrith is only $4,200. And while I think they're all live, they're going to be playing their hearts out this week. They're going to definitely have the crowd on their side. I'm not sure if they're worth the squeeze. In fact, I'm probably going to be playing all of these kind of players, but they're not going to be huge leverage spots for me, because if you're going to try and leverage guys that might be 30, 40% owned, then you're going to have to take them like 75 to 80% of your lineup. So I don't love a lot of these Canadians down here, just because I think they're going to be a little bit higher owned than you would probably expect. Worth noting, though, that Corey Connors, a pretty damn good course fit. I know we didn't talk about the model this week as Royal Montreal. There's only so much we can do in a match play format in terms of modeling, but a lot of it is putting based, which I guess doesn't help with Corey Connors. But the proximity buckets that we're mostly looking at, especially from the mid to shorter range, a lot of those check out for Corey. And this is much more of a driving accuracy course than a driving distance course, which is always going to be something that Corey Connors would prefer. So I think that he's done okay at some of these comp courses as well. So that also gives him a little bit of a boost. But all things considered, though, he is going to be one of the chalkiest value options towards the bottom. Jason Day has a lot of experience in the international format. The one thing I'll say about Jason Day is that maybe he gets more playing time than a lot of people are expecting. He's not been playing horrible golf out here towards the end of 2024, and he's also a player that's been really solid in this format. So I think that he's a decent option down low, especially if you're looking to get a little bit different, as he'll be a lot lower owned, I think, than those Canadian options. Christian Bezainhout, no idea how much he's going to play. He's one of the lower ranked options, lower projected options out there on the slate, mostly because we don't know how much opportunity he's going to get, and also he's on the side that is not favored, right? The underdogs, we'll put it that way. I was going to say something else, but we'll be nice about it, right? You got Russell Henley down here at $5,000. He's probably not going to play all that much either, unless he gets with like a Tony Finau or something that then runs the table. So I've got him down as a question mark. Same thing as a Bezainhout. No idea who these guys are going to play with. Finau hasn't had that much success with anyone in particular. Siwoo Kim, he had some success with Tom Kim the last time around. So I would say out of any of these guys down low, the groups that I feel the most confident with would be maybe Siwoo, Tom Kim, maybe Jason Day with one of the other experienced options over there on the international squad. And then I think that these Canadians might be paired together. So it could be a Corey Connors Pendrith, a Corey Connors Mackenzie Hughes, or maybe a Mackenzie Hughes and Taylor Pendrith that they go out there and throw out there. Would not surprise me to see an all Canadian pairing. Mackenzie Hughes, though, I took him at 30-1 for top point scorer. So what I like about Hughes, he's got that hometown narrative going, whatever, right? Like I said, these guys are going to be pretty high owned this week. What I actually like about Hughes is the form. And it's not that he's been putting the lights out. He's been getting into the top 5, top 10 by doing that. His usual thing, going out there, chipping in, making all those 20-footers. Mackenzie Hughes has been ball striking the shit out of it lately. In fact, if you take a look at the last 12 rounds, we'll go down to the bottom of the board here. Look at this. He's losing off the tee. Okay, that's kind of his thing. Still doing really good in the short game, but he's gaining with the approach play. And if you take a look at his last 2 events in particular, just the last 2 events of sample size, he's gaining well over a stroke per round with the iron. So I love that momentum heading in. He is peaking at the right time, going to be playing in front of his home crowd. He's only $4,800. And the one thing I'll say about these Canadians is that if they play well, they're going to get played time and time again, right? If he goes out there with Corey Connors in round number 1, they go out there and dominate their matchup because of all that energy, he might play every single slate. So that's why I took him for top point scorer. This is a long shot at best, right? He's 30-1 in a 24 player field. So, kind of know what we're buying at some point. But this is the kind of player, just like a Wyndham Clark, a Thagala I was talking about before, that could be a match play god. These are the sort of guys, these short game guys, Kisners, that bulldog. They just never give up, even if they have, a tying putt from like 20 feet. He makes a lot of those. So I think just the style of golfer that we're looking for. And by the way, over here on the stat side, right, number 2 is putting that we're looking at. I mean, there's no better putter out here in this kind of field. So definitely in play for this kind of week. Keegan, Ryder Cup captain, maybe they give him a few extra reps this week because he's earned it out there from that side. But $4,600 playing some really solid golf. If you're looking for an American down low, I think he makes a lot of sense. Aminu Lee, no idea how much he's going to play. Worth noting that I guess they could put him with Jason Day because they have, same nationality. They try and do that from time to time out there with their pairings, but no idea what we're going to see there. Taylor Pendrith might be the highest owned player on the slate, and I'm not kidding when I say that. Him, Mackenzie Hughes, Corey Connors are going to be higher owned than like Scotty Scheffler and Xander Schauffele up top. So part of that's just the pricing. Taking these guys at $4,000 or $5,000 opens you up a ton of salary with the rest of your lineup. So I guess you just got to know that with these guys down here, right? They project through the roof because I think the Canadians might play more than some of the other options down here. However, there's going to be a massive ownership cost when going out there and doing so. And then the last player to talk about here is Benny Ann, who I'm not sure why he's the cheapest player on this slate. He's been playing some decent golf with his ball striking lately. The pairing is the issue, right? They're going to put him with Tom or Siwoo. They're going to put him with somebody like a Minwoo Lee, for example. Who knows? So we'll have to see what they do with the pairings. If any of these internationals are paired up for round 1 and they're super cheap down here, are probably going to be a key fixture out there in my player pool. Alrighty, guys, that is all I've got for the DFS and betting preview this week. Go ahead, smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and best of luck with all of your lineups and all of your bets for this week. If you want a chance to earn a free month on my Patreon page, which is of course where you can find the spreadsheets that you see in all of my content, but go ahead, give me the winning score for this week and give me the team that wins. So if you can give me the team and the exact winning score, you will win a free month of my Patreon page. So go ahead, claim your score down below, because once it is taken once, it cannot be taken again. So go ahead, early bird gets the worm there. We'll win a free month of the Patreon page if you get that correct. And best of luck with all of your exposure this week. We'll have some NFL content coming out for the main slate, Monday Night Football as per usual. Maybe a live stream tomorrow out there for the President's Cup. We'll have to see with the timing of the press conferences and stuff. But for all the content that you guys know that I'm doing for Showdown out there for main slate every single week, make sure to check out the Patreon page for that. We'll have updates after we get those pairings tomorrow, which are going to heavily impact projections. Ownership is going to change quite a bit based on those pairings. And of course, the kind of player pool that I'm getting to as well. So for all the updated information, you guys know the place to be. We've also got some props. We're probably going to have an underdog and prize picks out there for this event. Also, potentially some stuff over there for the Euro golf side as well. So I'm stoked for it. A lot of exposure to get to this weekend. We got NFL on top of it. Just a great time to be a sports fan. So appreciate you guys. Appreciate the support here in the channel as per usual. And let's have ourselves a week.